What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. It's Thursday, so time for another player breakdown video. This week's highest requested breakdown was among second round running backs. It's between Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Leonard Fournette. Let me know who you want me to break down next week and upvote the responses you want to see the most in the comment section. I'm not going to be doing running back for a third straight week, but any other positions on the table. So whatever you want to see, put in the comment section. If you agree with others, please upvote them. So let's hop into this one. We're going to start off with age and injury history, since that is what most of you fear with every single one of these players, at least injury history, not really age. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever said that these running backs are too old, but I'll mention it first. Saquon is the youngest of the group, just 25 years old, so same age as Dave Montgomery, Pollard, Miles Sanders, to give you kind of a frame of reference. And then Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette are both 27. But again, you don't worry about running backs until they turn, I guess, like 29. 30 is really like the cliff. Over 30, that's, it's pretty old for being running back. But 28, 29 is when you start to really think about it. So 25 and 27 for two of them, of no concern. Don't even think about age at all. Also, if you're, I don't know, in the back of your mind, you're thinking maybe it's not age, maybe it's touches. None of these backs have over 1,200 touches in their career. So zero concerns about age, zero concerns about like workloads being too high over their careers. What people do have concerns about, and at times can be legitimate, is injury history. In terms of percent of possible games played, the ranking goes first, Aaron Jones, 85%. Second, Leonard Fournette, 77%. Third, Saquon Barkley, 68%. So Aaron Jones has played the highest percent of his possible games, missed the fewest due to injury, then Fournette, then Saquon. Now, I wanted to show this because it is somewhat important, when looking at the past, but percent of games played, percent of possible games played, it's not that good of a metric, to be completely honest. I just wanted to bring it up honestly because I think someone's going to say in the comment section if I don't. It's not fantastic because would Saquon be a higher injury risk for us, or should we value it in that light more if he tore his ACL in week 2 as opposed to week 5? Of course not. Right? You and I both know, 2 years ago, tears the ACL. I don't care if it happened in week 2 or week 5. He's recovered. It has the same impact on him right now. It doesn't matter. But if you look at percent of games missed, then it very heavily weights people who got hurt early in the season, and that's not fair. It is fair when you're looking at the next year, someone who tore their ACL, in the playoffs versus the preseason. Well, yeah, they've had more time to recover. But after that initial season, when we're looking further into their career, it's completely irrelevant. And that's why, again, it's just not a great metric. So here are the injuries that each has suffered over their careers. We'll start with Saquon Barkley. 2018 rookie season, he played fully healthy 16 weeks. In year 2, he missed 3 games with a high ankle sprain. In year 3, he tore the ACL, MCL, and meniscus. It was a very bad knee injury in week 2. Obviously misses the rest of the season there. And then last year missed 4 games with a low ankle sprain. So through 4 years, he's had the 2 ankle injuries and then the knee injuries, at least in terms of everyone gets little injuries, but in terms of things that have forced him to miss games. He could absolutely suffer another injury this season, but if we're looking back to the knee, to the ankle injuries, especially with last season's being on a fluke play, again, it can happen, but he's fully recovered from both, and neither one of them are of a concern to where they could be re-injured, that they could cause him to be injured at a higher rate. Fluke injuries that he's over at this point. Any injury from now on will be a new injury unrelated to the ones in the past. If anyone's thinking differently than that, you can capitalize. Now, that's not to say him as a player can't get hurt at a higher rate, just that the previous injuries will not be causing that. Now, Leonard Fournette. He missed 3 games in his rookie season with ankle and quad injuries. In year 2, he missed 6 games with a hamstring injury, 1 game with an ankle injury, another game from suspension, but it wasn't injury related. In year 3, he missed 1 game with a neck strain. In year 4, effectively missed 3 games with an ankle injury, and then missed another game after being a healthy scratch. And then last year, 4 more games with a hamstring. So that's 2 major hamstring injuries and then 3 separate ankle injuries. But no, major season-ending injury like Saquon had. And finally, Aaron Jones missed 3 games as a rookie with an MCL sprain, though it's worth noting he barely played any snaps as a rookie. I mean, he played snaps, but he wasn't very involved as a rookie. We're going to go later on and look at points per game and stuff like that, and I'm completely throwing out his rookie season because I don't really think we can gain a whole lot from that season. So misses a few games, but we're not taking too much away from that rookie year. In year 2, he opened the season with a 2-game suspension, and then he missed 2 more games with a knee sprain. Year 3, he had a shoulder strain, but he played a full 16 weeks. So even though he had the injury for a few weeks, he didn't miss any games. Year 4 has the calf strain, misses 2 more games. And then last year, missed 2 games with a knee injury. So he's had some injuries, but for the most part, they've been 2 weeks to a month. And so haven't had anything major as well. But we have 4 years from Saquon. We've got 5 years from Fournette, 5 years from Aaron Jones. And yet, all of that, those 14 seasons, we have combined 2 fully healthy years, 1 by Saquon, 1 by Aaron Jones. My expectation is that each one of these running backs is going to miss 1 game to a month. Somewhere in that range, they are probably going to miss. But realistically, that is the expectation from most running backs who are seeing significant volume. That's just how the position goes. If you look historically, look at the top end running backs in points per game, even look at the top end running backs in total points, it is very common that running backs will play 14 to 15 games. They'll miss a game here and there with an injury. It is just something that happens. So when we're looking at these running backs, I'm not overly concerned. Maybe you can look at Saquon and Fournette and say, oh, they might on average miss 1 more game than the players going around them. But I think that's a stretch to really think we can predict that. People really thought that with Joe Mixon last year. And then he was the only running back, or one of the only running backs in the high end. I guess Najee Harris was another one of the only ones to not get hurt. We used to look at Christian McCaffrey in that light. Missed nothing in college. Nothing over the first few seasons. We're he can't even get hurt. And now it's he can't stay healthy. So players are healthy until they're not healthy. And it's you can't just look at someone who's had a few injuries here and there and say, oh my goodness, they're super injury prone. Well, until they're not. And they pull a Joe Mixon and they play fully healthy. So all running backs getting volume can get hurt. I really would not look at these running backs and not draft them because of that. So with that out of the way, how about career production? Counting the seasons where they each played, or I guess the one you're looking at, played at least 8 games, and then excluding Aaron Jones' rookie season, because again, that's irrelevant for us right now. If we're looking at, what is he going to produce when he's actually using the offense, it's irrelevant. So has to play 8 games, excluding Aaron Jones' rookie season. And looking at half PPR points per game for these running backs, we have Saquon finished 2nd, 6th, and 33rd. Aaron Jones finished 16th, 4th, 5th, and 14th, and then Fournette 6th, 13th, 11th, 37th, and 7th, with a points per game ranking of Saquon first, 16.35 career points per game in, these metrics, played at least 8 games, not counting Aaron Jones' rookie season. Aaron Jones second, 14.3 career points per game. This is half PPR scoring, by the way. Leonard Fournette third, 13.9 half PPR points per game. In fact, also, Leonard Fournette has never had a season where he has matched the career average for Saquon, even including last year for Saquon. And then Aaron Jones has actually surpassed that mark, that average mark for Saquon, in 2 of the last 3 years. So if we're looking at career production, technically Saquon wins overall, but Aaron Jones has been really, really good these last 3 years. 2 of the last 3 years, he's been edging out Saquon's average production. So I would say that the win goes to Saquon and Aaron Jones as far as career production. Maybe you want to give it a little bit to Saquon because, that rookie season, that second year, really, really good. But as we know, historical production, it's not everything. We are much more interested in how these players are going to perform moving forward. While, the past is obviously the best indicator that we have, past production is the best indicator of future production. we want to know what's going to change from what we've seen in the past into the season. The biggest changes for each team are the new coaching staff in New York, the loss of Devonta Adams in Green Bay, and then I would say a tie for Tampa. Tampa's probably the least interesting. We'll go over them first because it's not super interesting. But it's kind of a tie between like losing, Ronald Jones, losing Gronk, having like Godwin, maybe a little bit slow to start the season, and then also the drafting of Rachaad White. I think those things kind of balance out, but those are like the biggest changes for that team. So again, we'll go over that first. So basically, when we're looking at Tampa, how they're different from last year, the touchdown ceiling for Fournette is like theoretically like 20. I mean, realistically, you take Gronk out of the picture, you take Ronald Jones out of the picture, you take potentially Chris Godwin out of the picture for a little bit of time. Like Leonard Fournette might open the season with like 7 touchdowns in the first month. I mean, that is an actual thing that could happen. And so that's obviously a positive. And the offense is still going to be good, even losing some of these players or having, again, Godwin return slowly. And so the touchdowns have to go somewhere. And Brady gives touchdowns to players he trusts, and he trusts Leonard Fournette. But then they go out and they draft Rachaad White, which caps the reception ceiling. So all in all, I would say that like a relatively net neutral outcome for Fournette. The touchdown ceiling, like I said, is massive. If they decide that Rachaad White's not someone they want to use or not someone they trust maybe in the red zone, we can't really know that right now. But if that happens, it's like Evans and it's Fournette. And if they're going to score like 4 touchdowns a game, maybe like, between 3 and 4 touchdowns a game, like, well, these guys are going to have massive ceilings. So that's a positive. But again, Rachaad White's a fantastic receiving back. And so when we're considering that, it brings it down. And that's why I kind of said relatively net neutral change there. If we're looking at the second most interesting, I would say it's Adams. We have him, or I guess for Aaron Jones, but it's Adams leaving Green Bay. This is going to raise the touchdown ceiling, raise the reception ceiling for Aaron Jones, though it makes the offense worse. So maybe the offense as a whole scores fewer. So even though the percent of receptions, percent of touchdowns will increase, if the total is going down, that could also be net neutral. So that'll be interesting. Also, it's possible that while they're going to be an elite offense in terms of efficiency, and maybe touchdown scored as well, they're not going to be high volume. They're going to play relatively slow. They're going to mix in a lot of the ground game, which we know is, the least valuable touch for fantasy. Like if you have Aaron Jones in a play and you get to carry, it's like, oh, okay. I mean, he's probably getting like, 0.4, 0.5, but you'd much rather have a screen pass. You'd much rather have him go out there, run a route and get a target than a carry, of course. So with the offense being worse overall, less efficient, it's possible this is a net neutral outcome as well. But I just want to say he scored 13.33 touchdowns per game in the last 3 seasons. He has had just under 50 receptions per game. And we have seen the ceiling. We've seen the games where he goes nuclear when Adams is on the sideline, and it's not going to happen every single week. But those nuclear outcomes are more likely to happen without Adams. And he's going to have a ceiling where he only has 13 carries, but he scores 35 fantasy points because he has 2 to 3 touchdowns, mixes in 7 receptions for 100 yards, and that's really valuable. So I think overall, we could be viewing this as a positive for Aaron Jones. He's going to have an incredible ceiling because of the loss of Adams. Then we move on to the coaching change in New York. This is, I would say, the most interesting among these 3 and the one I'm most excited about, though it's not guaranteed to be the most valuable. It's just one I'm most excited to see. You've got Jason Garrett, just like a stone donkey, finally leaving the team. And then Brian Daboll, is like, I don't want to say he's an unknown, but like he's done really well in one situation. Let's see if he can do it in New York. It's like he made this offense fantastic with Josh Allen. Can he do it again with Daniel Jones? And it's the unknown also of Daniel Jones. Is Daniel Jones a terrible quarterback? They're going to be bad this season, draft one of the really good quarterback prospects next year, and then Brian Daboll can like really, really excel moving forward? I don't know. But I think there's a possibility that given this new coaching staff that I trust, given at least the likelihood that the play calls are a little bit better than they were last season. The expectation that they're going to play faster, that they're going to throw the ball at a higher rate, mix all of that together, and there's absolutely a chance that this offense is good. Now, I don't think there's a chance this offense is going to be elite, at least right away, maybe in like 3 years once they really get rolling, maybe. But I think they can be good. And even if that's all that they are is good, that's going to be a really positive thing for Saquon because he's been playing with terrible. And while there are plenty of, garbage time receptions thrown in there, kind of elevating his stats at time, you still want the offense to be good. You want them throwing it a ton because he's going to have a billion receptions. You want them scoring at a higher rate because he's going to be one of their best players in the red zone. And so I think this coaching change is a massive positive, but I only think it. It does not lock it in as an absolute certainty. So, how do these three project? Fournette comes in last for me. Stonehands Jones is gone, and so he's being replaced by Rachaad White. And even giving Fournette 14.4 projected touchdowns, which is a very generous number, though something I think he can hit, the capped reception ceiling really does hold him back from competing with Aaron Jones, competing with Saquon Barkley. They just beat him by so many in the projected receptions that he does finish last in half PPR, in full PPR, though I do think you'll see on the screen, I believe he's second in standard scoring, but again, please don't play in that format. It is extremely close between the other two. Aaron Jones does slightly edge out Saquon, though, in every single format, which is something I am happy with because basically, when I'm looking at these projections, right now, Aaron Jones wins. And so when we're thinking about how could I be wrong? Well, like I kind of alluded to before, I could be wrong in over projecting the Giants offense, thinking that this coaching change has a larger impact. Maybe it's just that Daniel Jones is awful. No coaching could really help it out, and that they're still going to be bad this season. And so if I'm wrong on Saquon, my expectation is the coaching staff is really good and they end up being worse. That means I'm wrong on Saquon having him too high. If I'm wrong on Aaron Jones, I already project the Packers to be one of the lowest volume offenses in the league, still be efficient, but I dock their, efficiency as well with Adams leaving. What if, Aaron Rodgers is just awesome, which he is, obviously. But what if he's just really awesome and he elevates this offense even without having Adams? And maybe I'm under projecting the Packers given the loss of Adams, in which case, if I'm wrong on Aaron Jones, I'm probably wrong on the low end. And so if I'm probably wrong on the high end for Saquon, probably wrong on the low end for Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones still ends up on top, then I can feel really good about projecting him better and ranking him better. So I'm going to have Aaron Jones first, Saquon second, and Leonard Fournette third. So that'll do it for this week's player breakdown. Please let me know who you want to see next week in the comment section below, and please upvote the ones that you want to see as well. I'll do the one that is the highest upvoted as long as it kind of makes sense for me to do. And make sure to check out my exact rankings, my exact projections, strategy articles, and more on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I'll be back tomorrow to go over 5 league-winning running backs, Saturday to go over the biggest ADP changes over the last week, and then Monday for another episode of Mock Draft Monday. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.